Chapter 571. When Lady Zhao came back, she happened to see Huang Fu-chi open the car door and let Gu Shengyin out. She was a little surprised by this scene. "Mother!" Gu Shengyin called her. "Hey!" Lady Zhao walked to her daughter, looked at Huang Fu-chi, and asked politely, "This is?" "Hello, mother-in-law." Huang Fu-chi bowed. "I'm Huang Fu-chi." Lady Zhao was so shocked by this that she covered her mouth with a handkerchief. She had heard of Huang Fu-chi's name after so many days in Yuncheng. How did her daughter provoke such a big shot? She looked at her daughter reflexively. How long had it been since they last met, and Ruohua had found her a son-in-law? Gu Shengyin shook her head helplessly. After all, it was related to her daughter. Although Huang Fu-chi's aura was very scary, Lady Zhao still bravely put on a cold face. "Young Marshal Huang Fu, please be careful with your words." After saying this, Lady Zhao's heart calmed down a lot. She continued, "Our Ruohua is a girl. If you speak like this, it's not good for her reputation." After saying this, she pulled Gu Shengyin behind her, as if she was worried that Huang Fu-chi would get angry. Unexpectedly, Huang Fu-chi nodded and apologized to her. "I didn't think it through, Lady Zhao. I will send the betrothal gifts to Ruohua as soon as possible to confirm our relationship." After saying this, he nodded to the two of them, got in the car, and left. Lady Zhao pulled her daughter into the house in a trance. "Tell me, what's the situation?" Lady Zhao rarely acted like a mother. Gu Shengyin was also a little helpless. If it weren't for her, anyone would be confused about this matter. Huang Fu-chi's character was unpredictable. If it were a real stranger with a strong temper, they might hate him. She sighed and told her about today's experience. "So, today is only the second time you've met?" Gu Shengyin nodded. "Ruohua, you have to be careful. If you don't like young Marshal Mu, we won't marry him. At worst, we won't live in Yuncheng. Let's go to the south." Zhao comforted Gu Shengyin. Gu Shengyin felt warmth in her heart. In such a situation, if one had even the slightest bit of selfishness in their hearts, they would probably think that this was a joyous occasion. They would feel that being able to rely on the Huang Fu clan was a great benefit. Zhao Shi simply asked if she was willing. When Gu Shengyin heard her words, she lowered her head and remained silent. After all, Madame Zhao was a woman. When she saw her daughter's reaction and recalled Huang Fu-chi's appearance and character, what else did she not understand? In his daughter's heart, it wasn't as if she didn't have any thoughts about him, right? That's right. How many women would be able to resist such a man? Zhao Shi asked herself in her heart, if time could go back 20 years, she might also have a crush on him. Her daughter's reaction made Zhao Shi feel relieved, but she immediately began to worry for her. It was the Huang Fu clan. It was not an ordinary large family, but the clan in charge of the entire 8 provinces in the northwest. If it had been in the previous dynasty, it would have been no problem for the Huang Fu clan to sit on half of the country and be independent. With her daughter's ability, if it had been an ordinary family, she could have won a seat with her own ability. But if the Huang Fu clan was not satisfied with her, she couldn't even find someone who could support her. Zhao Shi was very worried in her heart. The Huang Fu clan. When Huang Fu-chi returned home, he went straight to find his mother. Chapter 572. Marshal Huang Fu also came back, and the two of them were sitting and chatting. Marshal Huang Fu was a middle-aged man with a big belly. He always had a smile on his face and looked very kind. Of course, if you really thought that he was a kind person, you would be deceived. How could a man who could control hundreds of thousands of troops in the 8 provinces in the northwest be as kind as he looked? "Tong Feng, you're back? Your mother just told me that you like a girl?" Marshal Huang Fu asked his son to sit down. Huang Fu-chi nodded and turned to ask his mother, "What did you talk about with her?" Mrs. Marshal pushed a plate of peeled longans in front of him and said, "Nothing much. We just asked about her interests and hobbies. I like her personality." Huang Fu-chi nodded and stopped talking. But Marshal Huang Fu-chi said, "Son, I heard that the girl you like has been married before? My son is so outstanding. How can you marry a married woman? I don't agree. Huang Fu-chi said indifferently, I want to marry her. It's none of my business whether you agree or not. Marshal Huang Fu-chi was speechless. You've grown up. You don't even care about your father, do you? Huang Fu-chi didn't speak. Marshal Huang Fu-chi said angrily, Is that woman really so good? Huang Fu-chi nodded. In my heart, no one can compare to her. Marshal Huang Fu-chi asked, It has to be her? Huang Fu-chi nodded. It has to be her. Marshal Huang Fu-chi changed the topic. But I heard from your mother that she didn't agree with you. Huang Fu-chi said, It doesn't matter. She has to marry me anyway. Marshal Huang Fu-chi slapped the table. Good. I like your domineering temperament. You're exactly the same as me back then. As soon as he finished speaking, he received a warning look from Mrs. Marshal Huang Fu-chi, so he quickly changed his tone. It's not that easy to enter the door of my marshal's mansion. Huang Fu-chi knew what his parents were doing. He said, What do you want? Marshal Huang Fu-chi looked at Mrs. Marshal Huang Fu-chi. Mrs. Marshal Huang Fu-chi said, It's your own business to marry a wife, but you will be the head of the Huang Fu family in the future. Your wife will be the madam of the Huang Fu family. She represents the face of the Huang Fu family. Of course, let's not talk about these empty words first. Your wife, she has to be able to convince the masses, right? In the future, she had to have enough confidence in front of those madams in Yun City, right? Can Miss Yen do all this? Huang Fu-chi looked at his mother in confusion. She's my wife. Who dares to gossip about her? Madame Huang Fu put down the teacup in her hand. Tong Feng, just because you don't say it doesn't mean you don't say it in your heart. I'm not being picky when I let your wife do this. It's for her own good. Marrying into a prestigious family was not a good thing for some women. If she can do it, you won't have any objections? Marshal Huang Fu did not speak. Madame Huang Fu nodded. Huang Fu-chi suddenly opened his mouth and said, Oh, there's something I forgot to tell you. That forest visitor is Ruo Hua. Forest visitor? The marshal repeated the name. He felt that it sounded familiar. He suddenly slapped his thigh. Is it that female scholar who encourages women to oppose men taking concubines all day long? At the mention of this, the marshal gritted his teeth. Chapter 573. He had heard the name Lin Jianke a lot these days. That woman was the nemesis of men like them. Why should a woman be nice to herself? Why should a woman depend on a man to live? Why should a woman tolerate a man having 3 wives and 4 concubines? Wasn't that what she should do? Why were there so many questions? The point was that many women's emotions had been stirred up by her. Now, it was said that a small number of women had proposed to divorce their husbands. In Yunqing, women even began to apply for some easy positions. Now there were already literati in Yunqing Daily denouncing that women came to take their jobs and ignored their families. They were putting the cart before the horse. Contrary to the general's reaction, the general's wife's eyes lit up when she heard that Gu Shengyin was Lin Jianke. In some ways, the general's wife really admired Lin Jianke. Some of her views, her style, and her unique views on beauty made the general's wife admire her. If it weren't for the fact that she was no longer young and the general's relationship with her was more familial than romantic, the general's wife would have tried to live alone. If Lin Jianke became her daughter-in-law, the general's wife thought it was a good thing. However, the general asked Huang Fu-chi a series of questions that hit the nail on the head. I read the comments of Lin Jianke in the newspaper. Although they didn't say it explicitly, I think she advocates equality between men and women. If you marry her, it will be very difficult for you to have concubines in the future. Huang Fu-chi asked in reply, She is enough for me. Why do I need so many women? When mentioning other women, Huang Fu Xiaoshuai's face was full of disgust. Huang Fu Xiaoshuai was stumped by the question. He had no answer to this question. Which rich and powerful man wouldn't want to have 2 women on his left and right arms and enjoy the blessings of 2 wives? What went wrong with his son when he grew up? Huang Fu-chi got up. If there is no problem, mother, can you go to prepare the betrothal gift for me? 3 days later, I will go to their house to propose marriage in person. The general had never paid attention to his son's private affairs. He only cared about what kind of wife he wanted to marry as long as he liked her. Ever since Madame Huangfu found out that her son had fallen in love with the forest visitor, her previous objection had turned into a mysterious silence. When Huang Fu-chi said this, no one objected. That was all they agreed to. Huang Fu-chi thought that he could tell her the news tomorrow. Now, she had no reason to reject him, right? 3 days later, the long motorcade arrived at the small courtyard rented by Gu Shengyin. Gu Shengyin, Mrs. Zhao, and Mrs. Lin come out after hearing the news. They are stunned to see many young men in military uniforms carrying boxes of things into the yard. Gu Shengyin found Huang Fu-chi, who was standing at the side. What are you doing? Huang Fu-chi replied, betrothal gifts. Gu Shengyin nearly fainted. Wasn't this action too fast? Moreover, how could a bridegroom lead a team to deliver betrothal gifts? Huang Fu-chi looked at Lady Zhao and bowed as a junior. Huang Fu-chi has already reported this to his parents, and they are very satisfied with Ruohua. These are the betrothal gifts that my mother personally selected. Lady Zhao was already shocked speechless by the Huangfu family's speed. Can I refuse? Gu Shengyin suddenly asked. Huang Fu-chi replied, if you accept, I will hold your hand and take you to the car at the wedding. If you refuse, I will tie you to the car at the wedding. Chapter 574. The Huangfu family's actions couldn't be fooled. Even Huang Fu-chi's series of actions had been captured on camera. Huang Fu-xiao Shui had actually quietly arranged an engagement. Everyone was guessing who the lucky lady was. Half of Gu Shengyin's profile also appeared in the newspaper that day. Although Yan Ruohua had been married to Lu Zijuan for 2 years in the past, she had never left the house. In addition, she was so different from before that no one recognized her. There were only 2 people who recognized the person in the newspaper. One was Lu Zijuan, and the other was Shen Yuanxing. Both of them were shocked, but their shock was different. One was in disbelief, while the other was ecstatic. When Lu Zijuan saw the newspaper, he was eating outside with 2 of his classmates. He had been in a bad mood recently because Yun Yi had completely ignored him for some reason. She didn't want the jewelry and clothes he bought for her. He couldn't even enter the theater of Yunqi's class. The 2 classmates knew about his relationship with Lu Yuni, so they tried to persuade him. Actresses are heartless. Lu Yuni's behavior clearly shows that she's hooked up with a bigger sugar daddy and kicked him away. Lu Zijuan refused to believe this fact. He didn't believe that his Yun Yi was such a woman. He believed that their love was pure and beautiful. His 2 classmates had no choice but to drink with him to drown their sorrows. Someone happened to be hawking newspapers outside, and one of his classmates bought a copy. Ms. Lin Jianke is going to publish another article today, right? She hasn't removed it yet. What is she going to say today? Lu Zijuan's male classmate was a fan of Lin Jianke. He felt that such an independent, progressive, and thoughtful woman was most in line with the imagination of men like him. Her male classmate even laughed and said that if Ms. Lin Jianke was about his age, he wouldn't mind her divorce and would be willing to pursue her. In a sense, Lu Zijuan also admired Lin Jianke very much. It was just that he never dared to say this because he was the kind of man in her novel who divorced his wife in order to pursue free love. Lu Zijuan didn't feel that he had done anything wrong. He and Yan Ruohua didn't have anything in common. If they were forced to be together, it would only make both of them suffer. Speaking of Yan Ruohua, he thought of the person he saw in front of the theater of Yunqi class. She was sharp-tongued and her eyebrows were flying. She was a completely different person from the Yan Ruohua he knew. He shook his head with a smile. Why was he thinking of her again? At this moment, his classmate who was sitting opposite him and reading the newspaper suddenly said, "Young Marshal Huangfu is actually getting married?" Even the betrothal gifts were given? Does the woman have a photo? I can't see her clearly, but she looks pretty. Lu Zijuan didn't pay much attention to it until a classmate sitting next to him snatched the newspaper. He inadvertently glanced at it. The woman in the picture. He hurriedly snatched the newspaper and looked at the photo in detail. There was no mistake. Although it was only half a side profile, Lu Zijuan was sure that the woman on it was Yen Ruohua. He read the news on the newspaper again. Yen Ruohua was going to marry young Marshal Huangfu? How was this possible? A person like young Marshal Huangfu was from a different world from them. How could he be interested in Yen Ruohua? Zijuan? The two classmates watched in bafflement as Lu Zijuan ran out with the newspaper in his hand. Chapter 575. Following the address on the newspaper, Lu Zijuan found Gu Xingyin's small yard. In fact, since the address was exposed in the newspaper, many people wanted to enter this small yard. However, Huangfu Qi had already thought of this. Currently, this small courtyard was guarded by several fully armed soldiers. No one would dare to have any ideas about the people inside. Lu Zijuan couldn't get close at all. As long as he got close, someone would point a gun at him. After guarding for a day, Lu Zijuan felt that there was nothing he couldn't do. He tidied up his clothes and came to the door. Before the guards asked, he said politely, "I'm a friend of the owner of this yard. Can I go in and visit her?" The guard glanced at him and asked, "What's your name? Who are you looking for?" Lu Zijuan. "I'm looking for Yen Ruohua." Hearing that the gigolo was looking for Madame Xiao, the guard looked at him several times and said, "Wait outside. I'll go in and report." How could he be so arrogant? Lu Zijuan was dissatisfied. Soon the guard came out and looked at Lu Zijuan with a strange look. "Madame Xiao said she didn't know you. You're not a newspaper reporter, are you? I've met a lot of people like you in the past 2 days." Lu Zijuan quickly said, "Is Yen Ruohua really going to marry young Marshal Huangfu? I'm really her friend." The guard impatiently drove him away. "I said I didn't know her. Don't block the door here." Lu Zijuan stood aside and didn't know what he was feeling now. Yen Ruohua, who he looked down on and never looked at, was going to become Madame Xiao and the hostess of Yunqing? Was there anything more ridiculous than this in the world? He felt that he should see Yen Ruohua, but he had no idea why he should see her and what he should do after meeting her. Seeing that it was getting dark, Lu Zijuan turned around and was about to go home. As a result, something fell on his head. He blacked out and didn't know anything. When he woke up again, he found himself in a strange room. The style of the whole room was very simple. A man in a military uniform was sitting at a desk not far away. He looked very familiar. Lu Zijuan got up and saw the person clearly. This glance caused his heart to involuntarily tremble. He recognized this man with a terrifying aura. It was Huangfu Xiaoshui. He thought that he would never cross paths with anyone in his life. Huangfu Qi seemed to have noticed that he was awake. He stopped writing and stood up. As soon as he stood up, Lu Zijuan felt even more pressure. Huangfu Qi was very tall. He looked at Lu Zijuan with a hint of condescension in his eyes. "Mr. Lu, why are you looking for my fiancée?" Sure enough, it was for Yen Ruohua. Lu Zijuan knew that he had never interacted with Huangfu Qi before. Now, the only connection was that his ex-wife was Huangfu Qi's current fiancée. He summoned his courage and looked at Huangfu Qi. The other party's figure was tall and straight, his features were handsome, and his status was even higher. A man who could make all other men feel inferior. Why? That woman, Yen Ruohua, could still find such an outstanding man after leaving him? For some reason, he blurted out, "You're right. Young Marshal Huangfu, did you know that your fiancé was married before?" Chapter 576. As soon as he said this, he regretted it. Since when had he become such a despicable person? Then, a hand squeezed his neck tightly. A strong sense of suffocation surged. Huang Fuqi's cold voice sounded in his ear. How could she have met a man like you before? Such a woman was actually held back by such a man. Huang Fuqi's heart suddenly spread a fine and dense heartache. If only I had met her earlier, before she got married. In this way, she wouldn't have been treated like that. It didn't matter. In the future, he would be responsible for doubly spoiling her. Seeing that Lu Zijuan's face had begun to turn purple, Huang Fuqi loosened his hand and Lu Zijuan was thrown to the ground. Huang Fuqi seemed to have just encountered something dirty. He took a cloth towel from the desk and carefully wiped his hands. The person you abandoned like a pair of worn-out shoes is the treasure of my life. Lu Zijuan, don't let me see you trying to get close to her again. Otherwise, next time, I won't let go. Lu Zijuan went out of the door in a daze. It was already dark. He didn't go home. Instead, he walked to Yunqi's class. In the past, there were people guarding the door. But today, he didn't know if the gatekeeper happened to be lazy, but no one was guarding the door. Lu Zijuan entered the garden unimpeded. Yes, he still had Yun-Yi. Yen Ruohua was nothing. He loved Yun-Yi. As long as Yun-Yi was still there, it was fine. However, when he approached Lu Yunyi's room, he heard a gentle and soft voice. Division Commander Zhang, come, drink this cup. This voice was sweet and mellow, like the first cry of a oriole. It was a voice that Lu Zijuan couldn't be more familiar with. A lustful voice sounded, I want you to feed me personally. The following voice was self-evident. Lu Zijuan only felt a gust of hot air rushing to the door with a bang. This was not his Yun-Yi. This couldn't be his Yun-Yi. Yes, Yun-Yi must be forced. Lu Zijuan didn't know where the impulse came from. He kicked the door heavily. The scene in the room was unbearable to look at. A middle-aged man was lying on the chaise lounge. A few buttons of his military uniform were already unbuttoned. A beauty was lying on top of him. The beauty was holding a wine glass in her hand. The wine in the glass had already been emptied. Half of it was in the belly of the beauty, and the other half was in the belly of the middle-aged man. Wasn't that beauty Lu Yunyi? Her clothes were already in a mess, revealing the bright red undergarment underneath. When she turned her head, there was still a trace of wine at the corner of her mouth. The two of them were obviously startled by the commotion. Division Commander Zhang frowned. A clear look of disgust flashed across Lu Yunyi's eyes. It had long been a tacit rule to only talk about the wind and moon, regardless of asterisk. This man was so shameless that she couldn't shake him off. No man would be in a good mood when he was interrupted. Especially when Lu Zijuan was still deceiving himself and others. He said to Lu Yunyi affectionately, Yunyi, you must have been forced, right? Don't be afraid. I'm here to save you. Don't be afraid. Teacher Zhang glanced at the beauty on top of him. Old flame. Feeling the anger on the man's body, Lu Yunyi quickly smiled and said, Look at what you're saying. What old flame? Maybe he's just a hothead from somewhere. After reading a few scripts, he thinks he's the hero. Lu Zijuan looked at Lu Yunyi in disbelief. It was as if this was the first day he knew this woman. Chapter 577. Did she not remember all the sweet and affectionate vows they had made to each other? He had even promised to marry her. The man who was addressed as Division Commander Zhang laughed when he heard Lu Yunyi's words. He snorted nonchalantly, his voice full of viciousness. Since you don't know him, take him away and beat him up. Someone came in from outside the room and pulled Lu Zijuan, who was standing in a daze, away. Only then did Lu Zijuan react. He said to the people who were pulling him, Let go of me, what are you doing? What you're doing is against the law. Division Commander Zhang suddenly stopped his actions and said, I suddenly changed my mind. Don't drag him away. Right here, beat him up. After he finished speaking, he reached out and hooked Lu Yunyi. Lu Yunyi softly fell onto him with a cry. Come, serve me well. Let this little brat see what's good for him. Heavy punches landed on his body. Not far away, he could hear the sounds of the woman he loved having sex with another man. Lu Zijuan felt that at some point, his heart had died just like that. Pfft. He finally could not hold it in and spat out a mouthful of blood. "Reporting to Sir, he has fainted," one of the men said. One of the men who attacked Lu Zijuan said, "Mother *****. Lu Zijuan's voice was too seductive. His anger was ignited, and he had nowhere to vent it. He could only vent his energy on Lu Zijuan. His punches and kicks were merciless. "Oh, he's not dead, right?" Division Commander Zhang's lazy voice came from the curtains, with a hint of satisfaction after sex. That person replied, "We know our limits. We won't kill him. Carry him out and throw him far away. Don't let me see him when I go out and ruin my mood." "Yes." The door opened and closed. Their footsteps could be heard further and further away. "Damn it, it's the middle of the night, and we still have to run errands." A soldier spat on the ground and threw Lu Zijuan on the ground. Thinking about it, he still felt angry. He reached out and kicked Lu Zijuan's leg. Lu Zijuan, who had fainted, could not help but groan from the sudden pain. Forget it. Let's go." Another person couldn't bear to watch any longer and persuaded. On the evening of the second day, the Lu family finally found Lu Zijuan not far from the city gate. His body was covered in wounds. This scared the hell out of him. It was said that Madame Lu fainted when she saw Lu Zijuan like that. When the doctor came and told her about her situation, old Madame Lu, who had recovered with great difficulty, closed her eyes and fainted. The doctor said that the other areas were only superficial wounds. Although the injuries were serious, they could be healed after a few months of rest. However, the bones in Lu Zijuan's right leg had been broken. Most likely, the doctor didn't say it out loud, but his meaning was very clear. Lu Zijuan's right leg was probably crippled. The Lu family only had one male descendant. This kind of blow was really hard for people to accept. When Lu Zijuan woke up, he still hadn't calmed down when old Madame Lu, who had been keeping watch by the bedside, pulled his hand and cried to the heavens. After a while, he finally reacted to what he had lost. When he realized that his right leg might never recover, Lu Zijuan felt that losing Lu Yuni wasn't as bad as losing Lu Yuni. Chapter 578. Gu Shengyin didn't know what exactly happened that night. She only knew that Lu Zijuan and Lu Yuni had broken up. Lu Zijuan's leg was eventually crippled, just like in the original plot. As she had expected, Lu Zijuan didn't need to do anything at all. Lu Zijuan would suffer a painful price because of his beloved Lu Yuni. He lost a leg and was disillusioned with his beloved. She didn't know which was the most unacceptable for Lu Zijuan. She didn't have much time to pay attention to those two people now because she was about to get married. Yes, Huangfu Xiaoshuai's efficiency was indeed extraordinary. What Gu Shengyin was more curious about was how he managed to convince his parents to accept him. Not only the dignitaries of Yunqing, but also the entire northwest region and even the government in the distant capital sent officials to congratulate Huangfu Xiaoshuai's wedding. When the bride came out, it was indeed a strange face. Moreover, except for one person who claimed to be her mother, the only family members of the bride were Mr. and Mrs. Shen of White Cloud Cloth Company. Her surname was Yen, so she was definitely not a member of the Shen family. Judging from the expressions of the marshal and his wife, they were very happy, which meant that they were not dissatisfied with this daughter-in-law. As for the marshal, well, ordinary people didn't have the ability to see anything from Huangfu Xiaoshuai's expressionless face. However, they had heard a lot of stories before. It was said that if the marshal didn't agree, even the marshal and his wife couldn't force him to do anything. Come to think of it, this bride should be someone that young Marshal Mu himself likes. Everyone looked at the bride carefully again. At first glance, she was very beautiful. At second glance, she was also very polite and well-educated. In front of so many guests, she didn't show any stage fright. Everyone nodded in their hearts. Even the marshal was very satisfied. This daughter-in-law made him a little speechless in some ways. However, the daughter-in-law of the Huangfu family should have such a demeanor. The point was that she seemed to get along very well with the marshal. Zhao sat at the same table with the marshal and his wife, which was something she had never thought of before. She felt a little uneasy, but more than that, she was worried about her daughter. She looked at the couple without blinking and prayed countless times in her heart that young Marshal Mu would like Ruohua and treat her well. It was enough for her Ruohua to meet a bad guy like Lu Zijuan once. The marshal's wife could see her nervousness. Ever since she found out that Lin Jianke and her daughter-in-law were the same person, her attitude towards her changed drastically. She was also curious about Zhao Shi, who had raised such a daughter. She comforted Zhao Shi, "In-law, you don't have to worry. I know our Tongfeng's temperament the best. If he didn't like Ruohua to the core, he definitely wouldn't casually involve himself in marriage." When she talked about Gu Shengyin, her eyes were filled with love. Zhao Shi was relieved. She didn't know how the young commander would treat Ruohua, but at the very least, it seemed that the commander's wife was satisfied with Ruohua. After a busy day, Gu Shengyin waited for her new husband in the room. She sat alone on the bed in a daze. In so many worlds, in this world, the progress between her and him was the fastest. From meeting to getting engaged to getting married. It had been less than 2 months. How did she inexplicably become his wife? Chapter 579. The maid standing by the side thought she was nervous, so she smiled and comforted her. "Young madam, you don't have to be nervous. When young Marshal Mu went out, he specifically told me to serve you well. I've been in the marshal's mansion for several years, and this is the first time I've seen young Marshal Mu care so much about someone." Gu Shengyin came back to her senses and smiled at her. The door suddenly opened. Huangfu Qi, dressed in a military uniform, walked in with a gust of cold wind. The servants in the room tactfully retreated, leaving the room for the newlyweds. Neither of them spoke, and the room was so quiet that they could hear the laughter outside. Gu Shengyin didn't know what to say at this moment. She raised her head and happened to meet Huangfu Qi's burning gaze. He was staring at her without blinking, and there seemed to be a flame rising in the depths of his eyes. Gu Shengyin was no stranger to this kind of gaze. This man was aroused. Huangfu Qi saw her gaze and suddenly turned around to pour 2 cups of wine from the wine pot on the table. He handed 1 cup to Gu Shengyin. Gu Shengyin somewhat understood what he meant, but she didn't say anything. "Cross cups of wine," Huangfu Qi said concisely. He reached out and took Gu Shengyin's hand, intertwining their wrists. Gu Shengyin looked at the man's eyes, closed her eyes, and gently poured the wine from the cup into her mouth. Her body was suddenly pulled into an embrace, and the cup in her hand fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. When her body touched the soft bedding, the last thought in Gu Shengyin's mind was, "This is too fast." Young Marshal Huangfu's characteristic of only doing and not saying anything was vividly displayed. When Gu Shengyin got up the next day, Huangfu Qi helped her put on her clothes. It couldn't be helped. She seemed to have been tormented a little too hard, and she couldn't summon any strength. Huangfu Qi didn't want the maids to see her like this. For the first time in her life, young Marshal Huangfu was willing to serve her. Even so, when Gu Shengyin stepped on the ground, her legs couldn't help but soften, and she was hugged tightly by the man beside her. She unceremoniously glared at him. Huangfu Qi was startled for a moment before a trace of a smile flashed across his eyes. He reached out and lifted Gu Shengyin into his arms. "Put me down quickly. What would happen if someone saw us like this?" Gu Shengyin whispered. "It's okay. I'll put you down when we get downstairs." The marshal and his wife were already sitting in the hall. It was getting late. The marshal's wife was a little worried, but the marshal smiled. "This kid is a newlywed, and he likes her." The marshal's wife glared at him fiercely. "Watch your mouth in front of your daughter-in-law later." The marshal started from scratch. After so many years, he still couldn't get rid of the bandit spirit in his bones. At this moment, Some old maids in their 40s or 50s came over and whispered a few words in the marshal's wife's ear. There was a trace of surprise in the marshal's wife's eyes, and then there was a strong joy. "Really? Are you sure?" The old maids nodded affirmatively. "I still have a good eyesight. Young madam looks like it's her first time." The marshal looked at the two of them muttering and wondered, "What are you talking about? Can't you let me know?" The marshal's wife waved her hand to dismiss them and said a few words to the marshal happily. The marshal was also surprised. The marshal's wife's face was full of undisguised joy. Maybe she and our Tong Feng are destined to be together. Chapter 580. Gu Shengyin was carried all the way here by Huang Fu-chi. Fortunately, this man saved her face and put her down before entering the house. Gu Shengyin knew that she was just deceiving herself. They probably hadn't arrived yet. Someone had already informed the other side of the situation. However, it was better than being carried into the house in front of the parents. Otherwise, they would not know how frivolous this daughter-in-law was. She held Huang Fu-chi's hand and leaned almost all her important parts on him. The two of them entered the house intimately. Looking at the two of them, a smile of understanding flashed across the marshal's wife's eyes. "Father, mother." Huang Fu-chi nodded at the two of them. Gu Shengyin greeted them according to how he addressed them. The marshal responded and fumbled for a small box before handing it to Gu Shengyin. This was a gift for their first meeting. It was a little heavy. Gu Shengyin's first feeling when she took it. The marshal's eyes were a little mischievous. "Open it and see if you like the gift that I, as your father-in-law, have chosen for you." Since the marshal said so, Gu Shengyin could only do as he said. She opened the box and instantly understood who Huang Fu-chi's character was from. Who would give his daughter-in-law a gun on the first day of her marriage? The marshal's wife obviously did not expect that the gift that her husband had not shown her was this. She could not help but put her hand on her forehead. This was really... Gu Shengyin picked up the gun in the box lightly. This gun was obviously specially made for women. The small and elegant silver appearance looked more like an ornament than a lethal weapon. Gu Shengyin actually liked this kind of gift. She could not help but play with it in her hands. "Thank you, father." Looking at the undisguised joy in her eyes, the marshal clapped his hands and laughed. "Good. I know that you are the visitor of the forest, so I know that this kind of thing is probably to your liking. Ha ha ha." The marshal's wife looked at him helplessly. She pulled Gu Shengyin over and handed him a small box as well. "I won't prepare those weird gifts for you. Inside this box is a set of jewelry that I specially asked someone to make for you from Baoyu Restaurant. There are also some land deeds and shops." "Thank you, mother." Gu Shengyin knew that the couple really approved of her if they could take out these things. Gu Shengyin stayed with the Huangfu family for 3 days. On the first day, other than meeting the general and his wife, he was resting. The next day, he met Marshal Huangfu's group of beautiful concubines and Huang Fu-chi's half-sisters from different mothers. The marshal's wife never stopped Marshal Huangfu from taking in concubines, but there was one thing she did not allow those people to live in the Western-style building they lived in. Out of sight, out of mind. All the concubines and young ladies of the Huangfu family lived in another large courtyard nearby. On the third day, Gu Shengyin also rested in her room for a day. The reason was not to be told to outsiders. However, Madame Huangfu was happy to see this. According to this development, she estimated that she would soon be able to hold a grandson. However, her daughter-in-law's body needed to be nourished. On the day of returning home, Madame Zhao got up early. In fact, she had not rested well these days. She had been worried about whether her daughter was living well in the Huangfu family and whether she was not used to it. Until she saw Gu Shengyin. Her daughter's complexion could not lie. Although young Marshal Huangfu's personality was a little cold, he was really considerate to her daughter. When she saw her daughter sit down, Huang Fu-chi specially took a cushion for her. Madame Zhao was so happy that flowers bloomed in her heart. Chapter 581. Many people in Yunqing were paying attention to the couple, Gu Shengyin and Huang Fuqi. Soon, Gu Shengyin's identity was dug out by some people with ulterior motives. Young Marshal Huang Fu's bride turned out to be a married woman. Many people were dumbfounded at once. Some people who secretly disliked the Huang Fu family even bribed some literati to slander the Huang Fu family in the newspapers. The general idea was that the dignified Marshal Huang Fu had found such a daughter-in-law, which was simply a disgrace. More people were laughing at Gu Shengyin. In other words, they were waiting for the Huang Fu family's reaction. The Huang Fu family did not disappoint them. The day after the news came out, Marshal Huang Fu published a statement in the newspaper, claiming that he and his wife were very satisfied with Yan Ruohua as their daughter-in-law. As for her previous experience, it was a new era now. Why should she stick to the past? If someone maliciously smeared the reputation of the Huang Fu family, he would never tolerate it. Huang Fuqi also issued a statement. Compared with his father, he was much simpler and more violent. Whoever dares to speak ill of my wife, I will make him speechless. Before these rumors could spread, they were suppressed by the Huang Fu clan with thunderous force. Gu Shengyin also issued a statement, officially announcing her identity as a visitor of the forest. This time, she used her own experience to tell all women that women did not need to live under the oppression of some men. She could live a carefree life alone and even find her own true happiness. She was despised by her ex-husband and divorced decisively. After that, she became one of the owners of the cloth business on her own. Finally, she attracted young Marshal Huang Fu with her excellence and became young Marshal Huang Fu's wife. This woman's experience was a legend in itself. Many women had gained strength from her. Later generations, historians had analyzed that Yunqing had always been one of the most prosperous cities in the Republic of China for women's rights. A large part of this was due to young Marshal Huang Fu's wife. When Yunqing entered the snowy season, there was good news in the marshal's mansion. Young Marshal Huang Fu's wife was pregnant. This made young Marshal Huang Fu's wife very happy. She was afraid that Gu Shengyin would be bored, so she specially invited Lady Zhao to stay with her daughter every day. Now, Madame Zhao could no longer afford to live in that rented courtyard. Gu Shengyin bought a Western-style building not far from the marshal's Fu for her. If she misses her daughter, she can come over at any time. In September of the following year, Gu Shengyin gave birth to a chubby boy. The marshal was so happy that he held a banquet for 3 days outside the marshal's residence. At this time, the weather was already a bit cold. Huang Fuqi walked into the room. Gu Shengyin is not out of confinement yet. The child is carried out by the marshal's wife. The maid in the room sensibly walked out. Huang Fuqi sat by the bed and looked at his wife, who seemed to be in a good mood. "Are you tired?" Gu Shengyin shook her head. She had been lying down like this every day. How could she feel tired? "You don't seem to like Yuan Yuan?" Gu Shengyin was a little confused. Yuan Yuan was the child's nickname. These days, this man rarely held his son. When he saw his son, there was not much joy on his face. Huang Fuqi did not answer, but said, "Let's not have children in the future, okay? One is enough." Gu Shengyin was not obsessed with this and said softly, "It depends on fate." Huang Fuqi gently leaned his head on his wife's chest. He remembered the day when Ruohua gave birth. Basins of blood were brought out and the miserable cries in the room. It was enough to experience such a thing once. He was distressed. Chapter 582. Marshal Huang Fu's wife, Yan Ruohua. She was a legendary woman in the modern history of the Republic. She remarried and entered the Huang Fu family at that time. When no one thought highly of her, she successfully made everyone in the Huang Fu family accept her. Her love with Huang Fuqi also made many young girls who liked romance in later generations cry out in joy. It was simply a modern version of the overbearing young Marshal Huang Fuqi falling in love with me. It was said that Huang Fuqi fell in love with her at first sight. When they met again, he directly took her home. How much did Huang Fuqi dote on his wife? It was said that he had seen the pain of his wife giving birth once. In order not to let his wife feel that pain again, he actually did not have a second child in his life. In his life, he only had one woman, Yen Ruohua. In that era when it was common for men to have multiple wives and concubines, in that era when it was good to have many children, his actions had simply shattered everyone's understanding. How many people could be so affectionate, even 100 years later? Yen Ruohua's legend did not only lie in this. Speaking of this, it was necessary to mention the pen name she had used before, Lin Jianke. In the eyes of all women, Lin Jianke was without a doubt a god. A god in the fashion industry, a god who led women to confidence and freedom. In that era of rigid aesthetics, she created her own unique Yen style and collaborated with Baiyun Textiles to create the clothing brand, Yen. It was said that in that era, as long as the Yen brand released a new style of clothing, it would inevitably be crazily fought over by everyone in Yuncheng. Even today, 100 years later, the Yen brand was still an internationally renowned female clothing brand and had a pivotal position in the fashion industry. She was not only a fashion designer, but also the first woman in the modern history of the Republic to call for women to know how to live for themselves. After becoming the wife of the young marshal, she took advantage of her status and established a women's mutual aid committee in Yuncheng. This was also the first organization in the history of the Republic to be established to fight for the interests of women. Later, this committee gradually developed into the Women's Rights Protection Association. The first women's movement in the Republic was launched under her leadership. At that time, scholars did statistics and found that among the 40 cities in the Republic, women in Yuncheng had the highest status among all the cities. Women in Yuncheng also had the highest rate of working outside the home. Yen Ruohua lived to the age of 78. When she left, all the people in Yun City spontaneously followed her coffin around the entire city. That day, not a single shop in Yun City was open for business, and the traffic on the road was paralyzed. Another legendary story was that less than 3 days after Madame Yen Ruohua's death, old Marshal Huang Fuqi, who had always been healthy, called all of his children and grandchildren over. After he finished telling them about his will, he said, "I should go look for her. Otherwise, she won't be happy waiting for me alone." Then, he closed his eyes peacefully. This was just a rumor. Other than old Marshal Huang Fuqi's family, no one could prove its authenticity. However, old Marshal Huang Fuqi's lifelong love for Madame Yen Ruohua was acknowledged by everyone. The story of the Republic of China came to an end. This is the longest story I've ever written. It's actually 40,000 words long. It was also the story that he had written the most stagnant. At his worst, he had only written 1,000 words in 2 hours. Gigi knew that there were a lot of shortcomings in this story, and this kind of theme was a particularly big challenge for me. I'm very happy to be able to bring it to a complete end. Amazed face. Chapter 583. System, I feel that my body is full of power, Gu Shengyin said to the system. She moved her body. This body felt different from the previous world. A familiar power surged in her body. She looked around and found that she was lying in a huge lake. Not far away, there was pure white snow and rolling mountain peaks. She was lying in the unfreezing lake at the top of the mountain. She didn't feel cold at all. Someone is coming. Please pass out in time, the system reminded her. Then, Gu Shengyin's eyes went black. You force me to pass out. Why are you reminding me to be careful? Not long after Gu Shengyin passed out, a man came to this place. He was wearing a professional mountaineering suit. Obviously, he was a mountaineering enthusiast. The moment he saw Gu Shengyin, the man thought that he was hallucinating. In the crystal-clear lake, there was a girl as beautiful as a fairy lying quietly. She was wearing a white dress of unknown texture. Her eyebrows floated peacefully on the surface of the water. Under the contrast of the surrounding white snow, her whole body seemed to be emitting light. God! The man couldn't care about anything else. He took off his shoes and swam towards the figure in the water. He put his hand to the tip of her nose. Very good, she was still breathing. The man struggled to drag her to the shore. At the moment, he was wet all over and couldn't help but shiver in the cold wind at the top of the mountain. He picked up the signal device in his hand and sent out a signal. Soon, there was the rumbling sound of a helicopter. The man carried Gu Shengyin and boarded the helicopter. "Oh my God, Steve! Where did you meet her? She looks like an angel." The man's friend who drove the helicopter to pick up the man said in surprise when he saw Gu Shengyin. "Be serious. You are flying a helicopter now, John." "John." The man called John shrugged his shoulders to show that he knew. "I don't know how she appeared. When I saw her, she was lying in the lake." Steve was also surprised when he said this. John laughed and said, "Is she the fairy of this snow mountain?" Steve laughed along with him. While Gu Shengyin was unconscious, the system transmitted the storyline of this world to her. Her original body, Angela, was the most beloved angel of God. In this world, people had already lost their faith. Gods and angels had long become things in myths. The passage between the heavenly realm and the human world had long been closed. Angela was originally going to enter a teleportation array in the heaven realm and head to the fourth heaven. Who would have thought that the teleportation array, which had not had any problems for tens of thousands of years, would have a rare accident? Angela drifted in the space-time flow of the heavenly realm for a long time and came to Earth by chance. Her body and soul had been severely injured. Not only had her power been greatly weakened, she had even completely forgotten her previous memories. Just like now, she was picked up by this mountain-climbing enthusiast named Steve. The soul of an angel was the purest and most flawless, especially Angela, who had lost all her memories. She completely regarded Steve as her family and relied on and trusted him very much. No man could withstand such a beauty's dependent gaze. Unsurprisingly, Steve fell in love with Angela. However, he had a fiancée, Chow Anna, whom he had been in love with for 4 years and was planning to get married. Chapter 584. Chow Anna was a very nice woman. She was gentle, virtuous, and loved Steve very much. In the beginning, she treated Angela very well. She pitied the girl's experience and praised Steve's idea of taking her in. Everything ended when she found out that her husband had feelings for Angela. No woman could accept this kind of thing. Even if Chow Anna knew that Angela didn't know anything, this matter had nothing to do with her. But sometimes, beauty was the biggest sin. While Steve was out of the house, Joanna sent Angela on a train to a faraway city. It was not that she didn't feel guilty, but she was not confident that she could keep her fiancé's heart in front of such a beautiful girl. She thought that a beautiful girl like Angela would live a good life no matter where she was. But things were not as simple as Chow Anna thought. When Angela was targeted by a few gangsters and wanted to take advantage of her, her body instinctively activated its defense. Although it solved the small problem temporarily, it caused bigger problems later. Angela was being targeted by some organizations. They did all kinds of inhumane experiments on her body, especially when they found that the girl's body contained infinite power, and no matter how serious the wounds were, they could heal automatically. Everything became even more deranged. In the end, when Angela's life was in danger, the power of the seal was finally activated. The holy angel's 6 wings stretched out from her back, and the whole laboratory and all the people were turned into ashes. But she herself, because she used more power than she could bear when her body was injured, she fell into an eternal sleep. So my mission? Gu Shengyin was confused. Let Angela live a good life, avoid those things, and finally return to the heavenly state. The system directly told her the requirements. Gu Shengyin nodded. With Angela's strength and the fact that he was now in her body, it was not difficult for her to live a good life. But it might be troublesome to return to the heavenly state. In the original plot, Angela didn't find a way to go back until she fell into a deep sleep. She estimated the time, and when she opened her eyes, she found herself lying on a clean and soft bed. Chow Anna pushed the door open and came in. Although she had seen Gu Shengyin sleeping, when Chow Anna saw the blue eyes looking at her, she couldn't help but feel a little scared. My God, she is just too beautiful. You're awake? Chow Anna asked. Gu Shengyin nodded, and looked at Chow Anna with curiosity. Angels were very sensitive to good and evil, and Chow Anna's kindness to her now. Gu Shengyin didn't like Chow Anna, but she also didn't hate her. Chow Anna was kind, but she didn't mean that she was not a threat to Chow Anna. To be honest, in the original plot, Joanna didn't know what would happen to a beautiful girl like Angela who didn't know anything and what would happen to her outside. Chow Anna only pretended that she didn't know and comforted herself that Angela would live a better life. But it didn't matter, Gu Shengyin didn't plan to stay here for long. Chapter 585. Chow Anna felt that she could not hold her gaze anymore. How could she be so cute? Chow Anna introduced herself. Hello, I am Chow Anna. My fiancé, Steve, met you when we were climbing a mountain. Are you in any trouble? Gu Shengyin frowned without thinking. After a long time, she answered, Angela. Angela, which meant angel. Many parents would give their daughters such a name, but Chow Anna felt that no one was more suitable than the girl in front of her. At this time, Stephen came in. Like Chow Anna, he was shocked by Angela's beauty. However, Gu Shengyin was not the real Angela. She did not want to have anything to do with Stephen, so she did not show her love and dependence on him like in the original plot. Gu Shengyin stayed at Steve's house for half a month. She studied her body thoroughly. Angela's power was obviously great, but she was seriously injured on the way to the human world. Now her body could not bear the powerful power of the six-winged angel. Her body automatically sealed most of the power to protect itself. It was worth mentioning that after Gu Shengyin came to this world, she randomly drew a power from the previous world. The result made her speechless. It was the power of the blood race. Angela's body was made of the purest light elements. The dark power of the blood race could not merge with this body at all. System, can't you let me choose? Gu Shengyin complained. The system answered honestly, no, I can't. Host. The system said that it was a good system and would not compromise on some matters of principle. 3 days later, Angela said goodbye to Stephen and Chow Anna. You don't remember what happened in the past, do you? Is it safe? Chow Anna was a little worried. Gu Shengyin smiled innocently. I have a feeling that I should go to the market. Stephen also tried to persuade her to stay, but they could not resist Gu Shengyin's insistence. Chow Anna had prepared a lot of things for Gu Shengyin, including a change of clothes, an identity certificate that they had found a way to get for her, and some food. In the end, Joanna stuffed a lot of cash into the bag. Gu Shengyin did not refuse. She knew that she might be able to use it. Before leaving, Gu Shengyin gave Steve and Joanna a white necklace each. The necklace was very exquisite. The pendant was a small white feather that seemed to glow under the sunlight. Chow Anna fell in love with him at first sight. This can bring you good luck. You must wear it with you, Gu Shengyin said with a serious face. A protective necklace made from the feathers of a six-winged angel was a priceless treasure. Chow Anna didn't take his words seriously, but she liked this delicate little thing very much. Just like what Gu Shengyin said, she always wore it with her. Until one day, during a trip, the car they were on had a serial car accident. Half of the tourists in the car died on the spot, and the other half suffered different degrees of injuries. Only the two of them, Quan Su and Quan Wei, were unharmed. It was impossible for them to be in such a position. Chow Anna, who was still in shock, suddenly remembered what Gu Shengyin had said to her. The couple never took off the necklace again. Chapter 586. Gu Shengyin boarded the train to the city under the gaze of Steve and Joanna. In fact, she didn't know why she had to go to the city, but the system reminded her to do so. She asked why, and the system replied, "You have to go anyway." The system didn't say anything else. Gu Shengyin attracted a lot of attention. Some people were even secretly discussing whether this girl was a star somewhere. But if such a beautiful star debuted, it was impossible that no one would know about her. Some people even secretly took photos of Gu Shengyin sitting quietly beside the bed on the train. The sun shone through the glass window mischievously on her face. Under the sun, her face looked like a white jade carving. Any random photo was more shocking than those carefully edited photos of stars. A post went viral on the internet. Treat it as an existence similar to Weibo. It was a very simple post. Today on the train, I felt like I met an angel. Below was a photo. It was the photo of Gu Shangyin with her eyes half closed and the sun shining on her body. It was only a side view, but it was enough to show her breathtaking beauty. In just over an hour, the post was reposted countless times. Many people expressed their disbelief. This photo had definitely been polished and polished. If you have the ability, post the original photo. The person who posted the post was unhappy. I posted the original photo, but you don't believe me. She walked up to Gu Shengyin and politely asked her if she could take a few photos of her and post them on the internet. After all, it was okay that she had just posted a side view. If she wanted to post a picture of her face, she had to get Gu Shengyin's permission. Gu Shengyin raised her head and looked at her curiously. When she knew the purpose of her visit, she showed a slightly shy smile and nodded gently. The woman couldn't help but cover her chest when she saw the smile. God, why did a girl of the same gender make her heart beat faster and she couldn't breathe? The last time she felt like this was when she saw her idol for many years. No, the feeling wasn't even this strong back then. She returned to her seat absent-mindedly. She thought in despair, could it be that she was actually gay? It was not only this woman who was shocked by Gu Shengyin's smile. When Gu Shengyin revealed that smile, the entire carriage became quiet weirdly. Then, those who were waiting for a follow-up discovered that the person who had sent the original message had sent several more messages. You're saying that this is a photo that has been edited? Now, I'll show you the one I just took. Oh, my phone is the super popular model. Below were pictures. 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 It was obvious that the photos were taken with a low-resolution phone. They could still see the scenery outside the car window. One of the photos even showed the foot of the passenger behind Gu Shengyin. The only thing that didn't change was Gu Shengyin's face, which was so beautiful that it didn't belong to this world. The onlookers went crazy, and this news was pushed to the front page in a short time. Some people even asked her which train she was on and asked her to go and watch. Gu Shengyin was so angry that he was caught off guard. In a distant city, in a 100-story building, a handsome man in a black suit was reading the news. No matter what price it takes, we must sign her to our company. Chapter 587. At the last stop, Gu Shengyin got off the train. This was a completely unfamiliar place to her. Many people were already looking at her. Some of them had already recognized her as the girl in the handwritten letter and were whispering excitedly. "Hello, beautiful lady." A middle-aged man in a black suit walked quickly to her side. "I'm Thomas from Kenna Pictures." He handed a business card to Gu Shengyin. "Are you interested in becoming an artist under our company?" Gu Shengyin was investigating Kenna Pictures. The results came out quickly. It was one of the largest film and television companies in the world and had an important position in the film industry. Thomas looked at the girl who remained silent and thought that she was wary of him. He took out his phone and tapped on it a few times. Then, he showed Gu Shengyin a page. "The person on this page is me. You don't have to worry that I'm a bad person." Then, he said considerately, "Or, if you feel hesitant, you can ask your guardian for help." This girl looks so young. She shouldn't be 18 years old yet, Thomas thought. When he said this, he was full of confidence. Ordinary people couldn't refuse an invitation from Kenna Pictures. No need. Gu Shengyin finally said, "I don't have a guardian. I can make my own decisions." Her voice was clear and gentle. When she spoke, it was like singing a hymn. Thomas's mind went blank for a moment. In his mind, he started to think about the development path for this girl. "That's great," Thomas said. "What do you mean?" Gu Shengyin tilted her head and winked mischievously. "I want to know what kind of conditions you will give me." Thomas was shocked by this cute tilting head and covered his heart. Oh my God! After he said that, he didn't feel awkward at all. If you don't mind, we can talk about it at our headquarters. Gu Shengyin got into Thomas's car. As soon as the car left, someone rushed over. How did Kenna's men move so quickly? Damn it! A sexy woman with an enchanting figure and red lips had a very bad expression on her face. She was from Byte Film. When she saw this girl's news on the internet, she saw countless business opportunities. She knew that this would be a huge money tree. But with that face, even if she didn't have any talent or acting skills, she could still move freely in this industry. It was a pity that she was one step behind them. The woman with red lips cursed, got in the car and left. Gu Shengyin accepted the invitation of this man called Thomas because when she was on the train, she suddenly felt a very subtle energy being transmitted into her body. The energy came from the woman who had uploaded her picture to the internet, the other passengers in the car, and the people who liked her on the internet. The amount of energy each person could give her was very small, but Gu Shengyin could clearly feel that the small, weak energy was slowly healing the serious injuries in her body. These were brought to her by those who liked her. But for her injuries, these energy were just a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. But what if the number of people became very large? But Gu Shengyin, who had been a movie queen in the entertainment industry, knew that a popular star would have a very scary fan club. Chapter 588. The amount of energy that each person could give her might not be much. 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, it might not be much either. But what if there were 10,000 people? What if there were 100,000 people? What if there were 1 million, 10 million, or even 100 million people? Gu Shengyin's mission was to make sure that Angela had a good life. Then, healing the injuries on this body and recovering her strength was also one of the missions. Gu Shengyin told the system about her conjecture. The system's reply confirmed her conjecture. Originally, the power of faith was the best energy for an angel. But now that the world had lost its gods and people no longer had faith, they could only use another method. Everyone knew that humans loved their idols crazily. This kind of love, in essence, was somewhat similar to the power of faith. It was just that this kind of love could not be compared to the purity of the power of faith. The effect of this kind of love was also very different from the power of faith. But this was already very good. At least Gu Shengyin saw a hope of recovering from her injuries. Say, if the identity of an angel was announced, the humans would gather their faith again? How was that possible? Gu Shengyin did not need to think to know that if she really did that, what awaited her would not be the power of faith, but some government or non-government organization that would detain and research her. Just like Angela in the original storyline. Along the way, Gu Shengyin was communicating with the system, so she did not say anything. Thomas, who was always very talkative, did not know why he was sitting beside her. At this time, it should be the best time to get closer to her. But when he saw this girl sitting there quietly without doing anything, he had an inexplicable feeling that he did not dare to disturb her. It was as if he would be committing an unforgivable crime if he disturbed her. Gu Shengyin knew why. Angela was a six-winged angel, even if she did not show her wings and retracted her holy light. But there was no way to completely retract the holy aura that belonged to a high-grade angel. Even if only a little was leaked, it was enough to make any mortal not dare to blaspheme. Of course, she couldn't tell Thomas about this, but Thomas had already found the reason by himself. Some of the top celebrities had their own unique aura. Sometimes, when you looked at a group photo, you would know that even though it was a group photo of two people, sometimes you would completely ignore the other person. This was the power of the aura. However, the aura of those celebrities was mostly formed through constant experience or after they had been famous for a long time. Could it be that this girl was born with such an aura? Thomas felt that he had really picked up a treasure. "We are here, Miss Angela." Thomas got out of the car first and opened the door for Gu Shengyin. After half an hour, Thomas learned Gu Shengyin's name. Kenna Pictures was located in the busiest commercial center of York City. Companies that could own an independent office building here were all existences with great influence in the world. Gu Shangyin raised his head to take a look before following Thomas into the company. Along the way, many fashionably dressed people greeted Thomas with smiles on their faces. If an ordinary person was here, he or she would have screamed out loud. This was because these people were all people who could be seen on the big screen often. Chapter 589. Thomas was not as enthusiastic as when he was with Gu Shengyin. He was indifferent to most people. He would only smile when he was with a few people. These people were all big shots in the film industry or rising stars. They looked curiously at Gu Shengyin, who was brought in by Thomas. At first glance, they felt a great sense of danger, especially the female stars. This girl was too beautiful. She was a woman who could make any woman feel threatened. Especially in the film industry, where the first thing to look at was the face. No wonder Thomas brought her here personally. No matter what those stars thought, they still gave Gu Shengyin a friendly smile on the surface. With her looks and Thomas's attitude, if this girl didn't court death by herself or really couldn't be helped, her future development wouldn't be too bad. It was good to form a good relationship with her in advance. Thomas brought Gu Shengyin to the 88th floor. This floor was the office of the company's senior management. There were already people waiting for them there. Thomas glanced around. Other than the company's director, even the general manager, who rarely appeared, was here. Other than that, there were also a few top managers. They were sitting here to see how beautiful this girl, who was known as an angel, was. The moment Gu Shengyin entered the office, they all held their breaths. After that, Kate, the top manager of Kenna Pictures, recalled, "When I saw Angela for the first time, I felt that the narrow office was suddenly lit up." She had said more than once that her biggest regret in life was not being able to be Angela's manager. An artist like her could bring a manager to the top of the world. Originally, the company had received orders from the big boss to sign this girl at all costs. Initially, these people still had some complaints in their hearts. That boss didn't know much about the entertainment industry, so he should at least let them take a look first, right? However, the moment they saw this girl named Angela, they understood what their boss was thinking. For such a girl, if Kenna's action was a little slower, there would be other companies that couldn't wait to throw out all kinds of generous conditions to beg her to sign a contract. Everything went smoothly. Even Gu Shengyin didn't expect that the company would be willing to give her such good conditions. If it wasn't for the system's confirmation that these documents and contracts were all real and had legal effect, anyone else would have suspected that this was a trap that Kenna had dug for them. Then, she chose her manager. Usually, the company would directly assign managers to artists. The big managers could even choose their own artists. When it came to Gu Shengyin, all of Kenna's top managers were there for her to choose from. This time, Thomas enjoyed the advantage of being close to her. Gu Shengyin looked at all the managers and chose him, who she was most familiar with, without hesitation. The others gritted their teeth in anger. They secretly hated themselves for not being willing to lower themselves to pick up an unknown girl after the company had issued that order. Now that they thought about it, they had missed a big money tree. Of course, they just felt a little regretful. Not long after, they beat their chests and stamped their feet. Chapter 590. Thomas was an all-round agent. That night, he brought Gu Shengyin to an exquisitely decorated high-class apartment. "This is the apartment the company gave you. This is your personal assistant Wella." Wella was a girl with some freckles on her face. She was around 20 years old and had a very bright smile. "Rest well today. Tomorrow I will come here to discuss with you your future position and your future schedule." Since it was already night time, Thomas didn't want to stay any longer. He left after saying this. "Wow. Miss Angela, this is the company's arrangement for an A-list artist." Wella looked at Gu Shengyin excitedly. If you looked closely, you could see a trace of envy in her eyes. This Miss Angela didn't even look 20 years old. She had such a high starting point. The artists in the company, Which one of them didn't debut many years ago and fight to get to where they were now? Gu Shengyin looked at her and smiled without saying anything. This Wella, to be sent by Kenna to be her personal assistant, she couldn't be as simple as she looked. You can call me Angela in the future. I hope we can work together happily. Gu Shengyin reached out her hand. Wella was dazed by this smile for a moment. She only reacted after Gu Shengyin called her and held Gu Shengyin's hand with a red face. God, even a girl like her couldn't control herself when facing Miss Angela's smile. She could imagine how passionate those male fans would be in the future. Wella thought in her heart. The next morning at 8, Thomas knocked on the apartment door on time. He originally thought that Gu Shengyin would still be resting. At this age, which young person didn't like to sleep in? But when he entered the door, he saw Gu Shengyin sitting on the sofa with a book in her hand. She smiled and said good morning to him. This girl, any action was enough to make her look like a painting. Thomas sighed in his heart and looked forward to the future. He and Gu Shengyin went to the study and began to talk about his ideas with her. The company wants you to take the high-end route. That's what I think too. This was decided by Angela's appearance and temperament. With her current appearance, even if she was wearing coarse clothes, no one would think that she was just an extra. What kind of family and parents could raise a girl like Angela? Of course, Kenna had investigated the identities of his artists. However, what puzzled them was that Angela was saved by a famous outdoor adventurer in a snowy mountain and lived in that small city for a period of time. He couldn't find any more information about Angela. It was as if she had appeared in the mountain out of thin air. Angela herself had no memories of her past. Kenna Company couldn't find anything, so they simply arranged a flawless false identity for Gu Shengyin so that she wouldn't be criticized because of her identity after she became famous. The two of them chatted until noon. Thomas was very satisfied with Gu Shengyin. Although this girl had some advantages that ordinary people couldn't compare to, she wasn't arrogant at all. Gu Shengyin was also very satisfied with Thomas. She used to be Ruan Kai, so she naturally knew how important an excellent manager was to an artist. Wella knocked on the door outside the room and the two of them reacted. Wella's skills are famous, Thomas said with a smile. Chapter 591. At night. Gu Shengyin had already fallen into a deep sleep. Wella walked out of her room and gently closed the door. How is she? A cold and emotionless male voice asked. Wella didn't know why her boss was so concerned about Angela. She honestly replied, "She's very beautiful and has a good temper, but what?" Wella's voice was a little strange. She seems to be unfamiliar with some common sense things. This was something that had always puzzled her. But thinking about how she said that she had lost her memory, this was also reasonable. Take good care of her. That male voice only said this one sentence. After Wella left, in the darkness, there was a low sigh with longing. Gu Shengyin didn't know this. The system also didn't tell her this. Kenna Pictures launched an earth-shattering publicity campaign. Whether it was the official website, major platforms, or even fashion magazines, there were advertisements for them. The content was all about the most anticipated new artist of the year. Even their competitors were speechless. This time, Kenna really put in a lot of effort for this newcomer. Even Kenna's latest film hadn't been able to enjoy such a bombardment of publicity. But the effect was equally good. Everyone knew that Kenna had recently signed a new artist and was training her in the direction of an A-list big star. Kenna's advertisements were also not modest at all. Something like, "A gift from God, the pearl of the snow mountain." Gu Shengyin was a little embarrassed. Kenna's move was really enough to whet the appetite of others. Almost everyone was looking forward to what kind of female artist they were boasting about. What kind of person was she? But after whetting the appetite of others, they were gone. There were no photos of the newcomer, no announcements of the newcomer, not even a photo of the newcomer. Shouldn't they take advantage of the current popularity to push out the newcomer? Now, if they pushed out the newcomer, they could still take advantage of the popularity and become popular. If they kept whetting the appetite of the masses, when the newcomer appeared, it wouldn't be able to satisfy people's expectations. Just the spittle alone could probably drown a person. Many people said that there were only two possibilities for Kenna to do this. 1. The higher-ups made a mistake in their decision. 2. They had great confidence in their new artist. With Kenna's status, the possibility of the former was very small. Then, it was very likely to be the latter. It had to be said that Kenna's publicity was on point this time. Regardless of whether it was in their handwriting, major platforms, or newspapers and magazines, they were all discussing Kenna, a newcomer who was said to have a great background. Wasn't this nonsense? Without a powerful background, would Kenna really be willing to spend so much resources on a newbie? The second wave of popularity was completely spontaneous. Therefore, Kenna, a mysterious newcomer who had never appeared in public, was no less popular than any A-list celebrity in terms of attention. What do you think is the background of this newcomer? The company is promoting her like this? A sexy female celebrity was chatting with another person beside her. If there were any fans here, they would recognize that this was Cynthia Gillard, who had become popular with a movie some time ago. She was a stunner known for her sex appeal. When she said this, her eyes were full of jealousy that couldn't be hidden. Chapter 592. The actress opposite her was even more famous than her. She was Motis Dawson, the top actress of Kenner who had won an Oscar. Motis Dawson did not say much after hearing Gerard's words. She had some guesses about the newcomer's identity. She was probably the girl that Thomas had brought over personally that day. When she thought of that girl's face, she could not help but be distracted for a moment. It was simply too shocking. However, at her position, no matter how outstanding the younger generation in the company was, they could not shake her position. She pretended not to hear Motis's subtle provocation. This idiot. The company was obviously trying to promote the newcomer. It was okay to ask around at this time, but if she wanted to trip her up, she was really stupid. That's right. Angela was a newcomer. Even within the company, other than a few higher-ups who knew about her, her identity was also a mystery. Gu Shengyin was preparing for this body's first movie. The annual blockbuster that Kenner was investing in was aiming for an Oscar. This movie was Kenner's most expensive movie of the day. The cast was even more luxurious. Most of them were signed artists under Kenner. There were also a few supporting actors who were hired from other places. Motis Dawson was the female lead of this movie. The male lead was also Augustus Monroe, who had won an Oscar before. He was one of the dream lovers of all women in the world. The director, Ken Peter, was in a bad mood. He had spent a lot of effort on this movie. He was also the one who had selected the actors. However, just as he was about to settle on the role, the biggest investor of the movie, Kenner Fortress, came in. It would have been fine if it was just a casual role. However, they wanted a very important supporting role in the entire movie. This was an epic fantasy movie based on the novel of the same name. The role that Kenner wanted was the first villain in the movie, a stunning beauty. His original choice was the most beautiful person in romance, who had been voted by the audience and media as the most beautiful person. This was because the character herself was the most beautiful person. A smile from the princess in the movie could make 100 flowers bloom. How could such a character be so easily replaced by someone else? He even quarreled with the investor because of this. However, the investor, who was usually very easy to talk to, was surprisingly stubborn this time. He repeatedly emphasized that the candidate they sent this time was definitely in line with the character of the princess. Well, in the end Peter gave in and agreed to let them bring someone over for him to look at. But that was all. If he didn't think it was suitable, he would never let people appear in his movies. The main cast of the movie had already received the news. Some of the smarter ones had already roughly guessed the identity of this heaven-sent actor. The only person who could force Peter to give in and was also a newcomer was probably Kenna, the newcomer who had been hidden so well. Quite a few people were waiting there to watch. What exactly did the other party look like, to actually have such great ability? The door opened, and everyone's gaze turned towards it. The one who came out was Thomas's signature smiling face. "Everyone is welcoming me with such a big formation?" Everyone rolled their eyes in their hearts. "Old man, go away. We want to see the person behind you." Then, the person they were looking for finally appeared behind Thomas. Everyone turned their attention to her once again. However, the person who came in was wearing a thick hoodie. The wide hood covered his face and a pair of huge sunglasses. They couldn't see anything at all. Chapter 593. At most, he could tell that the other party was a tall and slender woman. Everyone watched as Thomas led his men into the director's lounge. Ken Peter was sitting inside with a cold face. He was a stubborn old man. Even though he had agreed to Kenna's request, he was still in a bad mood. "Hey, old man, look, I've brought her here." Thomas seemed to be very familiar with him. Peter's expression softened a little. "I'll say this first. If she doesn't fit the image of the character, even if you brought her here, I won't use her." Thomas was full of confidence. "Don't worry, I bet you'll be satisfied with her. Angela." Gu Shengyin took off the sunglasses on the bridge of her nose and pulled down the hood. Her long, smooth blonde hair slid down her shoulders and fell to her waist. Peter poured himself a glass of water casually and glanced at Gu Shengyin's direction. It was this one glance that caused him to be stunned. The girl who stood there quietly had long blonde hair that reached her waist. She was like the most beautiful rice ear in the harvest season. Her blue eyes reflected the color of the entire sky. She was surprised to see the outsiders, but she immediately showed them a friendly smile. Joshua felt that at that moment, he heard the sound of flowers blooming in his heart. This was the description of the male protagonist, Joshua, when he first met Princess Utana in the original novel. Ken Peter felt that the beautiful princess must have walked out of the script and appeared in front of him. "Ken, my old man, your shoes are in trouble." Thomas's gloating voice woke him up. The water in the quilt overflowed and flowed onto his shoes. But Ken Peter didn't care about this. He put the quilt on the table and wiped his hands with a tissue. He walked to Gu Shengyin excitedly. "What's your name?" he asked. "Angela." "Angela, good name." He reached out his right hand to Gu Shengyin. "I wish us a happy cooperation." Was this considered overboard? Gu Shengyin blinked and reached out to shake hands with Ken Peter. Thomas, who was standing by the side, said unhappily, "Ken, earlier, you said that you wanted to see the person first. If you weren't satisfied, you wouldn't agree. Now, what do you think about our Angela compared to the actress you have your eyes on?" Peter glared at him and said, "If you had sent me Angela's photo earlier, I wouldn't have had to go through so much trouble." He was very excited now. Originally, he had high expectations for this movie, but the actress playing Princess Utana had not been chosen yet. God's love had allowed him to find such a person who fit the original novel perfectly. One had to know that in the original novel, the most controversial character among the fans was the villain princess who was both good and evil. In terms of popularity, Princess Utana was not any less popular than the male and female leads. A smile appeared on Thomas's face. He knew that as long as Angela was here, that perfectionist Ken would not have any objections. No one else could fit Princess Utana's image as well as Angela. Chapter 594. Even if Gu Shengyin's acting didn't meet expectations, Peter would at most cut her scenes a little. The actors waiting outside were all waiting for the result. Thomas walked out first. Seeing the smile on his face, many people had already guessed the answer. It seemed that director Peter had agreed. This made them even more curious. After all, director Peter had written all his dissatisfaction on his face. What kind of charm did this newcomer have to make this stubborn old man compromise? Soon they knew why. Gu Shengyin walked out with Peter. But at that moment, everyone automatically ignored Peter's existence. In everyone's eyes, there was only Gu Shengyin, who seemed to be glowing all over. Augustus Munro, who played the male lead, muttered, "I finally know why Joshua couldn't be ruthless when he found out that Utana was lying to him. Which man could be ruthless to such a woman?" The actresses had different reactions. Some were appreciative, some were jealous, and some maintained a smile. A few of them didn't look good. Would anyone really notice them if they acted in the same movie with such a person? Peter clapped his hands and said to everyone, "Let's welcome the last actor of The Holy Ring." Regardless of what they thought, the actors all smiled to show their welcome. Augustus Munro directly said to Gu Shengyin, "If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask me." Gu Shengyin smiled at him. "Thank you, Mr. Munro." Augustus covered his chest exaggeratedly. "God, I'm sure I was shot by the Cupid's arrow. I've been captured by your smile, Miss Angela." His performance made many people laugh. Motis Dawson also held Gu Shengyin's hand intimately. "You and I are both taught by Thomas. If you have any questions, you can ask me too." Most of the actors and actresses present were under Kenna, so of course, they wouldn't try to undermine Gu Shengyin. In fact, they had to support her from behind. At this time, Ken Peter said, "Everyone knows that the list of actors for The Holy Ring has been announced a long time ago. Only Utana's name has remained a mystery. I've decided to keep her a secret until the filming starts." This meant that they should keep their mouths shut when they returned. When he saw Gu Shengyin, Ken Peter had this idea in his mind. He wanted Utana to be one of the most mysterious people in this movie's publicity period. If it wasn't for Gu Shengyin, he might not have done this, but Angela's appearance gave him hope. Heidi was an ordinary high school student. She was a fan of The Holy Ring. Not only her, but her father and brother were also fans of the book. Ever since the news of the filming of The Holy Ring was released, she had been paying close attention to the news. Her favorite character was not the male lead, Joshua, or the female lead, Helen. It was the first villain, Princess Utana, who lived in the castle in the sky. The person who would play the princess was also one of the things she paid attention to the most. In Heidi's mind, the ideal actress for Utana was the first beauty of romance, Sophia. Only the first beauty could portray the charm of Princess Utana, right? Heidi thought, although she felt that Sophia was lacking something. Many people had the same idea as Heidi. Chapter 595. After dinner today, she habitually opened the official website of The Holy Ring. She found that it was flooded with comments. It turned out that the list of actors had been announced. Heidi's eyes lit up and she quickly scrolled down the list. Joshua, Augustus Munro, Helen, Motis Dawson, Utana. What? Heidi thought that she had seen wrongly and looked again. That's right, there was a long line of question marks behind the name of Utana. What did this mean? Heidi scrolled down the comments and sure enough, half of the fans were questioning what the director was doing. Heidi couldn't help but leave a comment. She wanted to know what this meant. However, there was no response from the official website. Heidi logged in and found that it was also flooded with comments. Many fans of The Holy Ring were discussing who would play Utana. The number of fans discussing Utana's role even exceeded the two main leads. At 8 o'clock in the evening, the official website of The Holy Ring finally responded. The most fitting character of Utana. Below the bold title was the words of the director, Ken Peter, "Good news for the fans of The Holy Ring. We have found the actor who best fits Utana's image. See you on December 1st next year." Below was some information about The Holy Ring, including the costume guide, budget, and so on. However, what the fans were most concerned about was who would play Utana. No. Well, if you don't tell us who it is, a photo will do, right? Also no. They didn't reveal anything and just used the banner of the most fitting character of Utana. All the fans' curiosity was piqued. The most fitting character of Utana? One had to know that in the original work, Utana was called a gift from God to the human world. Her beauty was completely beyond human imagination and she lived in the castle in the sky all year round. She didn't know what was good and evil and only relied on her own preferences. She had a kind of arrogant and cruel naivety to everyone. Could the crew really find such an actress? Was it the appearance or the temperament that matched the original work? Or was this a publicity stunt created by the production crew in order to attract more attention? Some anti-fans were already cursing on the official website. There were also some fans of Sophia. They had always thought that the role of Utana would go to Sophia. Only Sophia's beauty could make up for Utana, but the production team did not choose her. Another group of fans began to leave comments under the other actors and actresses, asking about the situation of the actor who played Utana. Of course, the actors who had been warned by Peter would not reveal any information about Gu Shengyin. Only Motis posted, "The news about Utana is a secret. I can only say that she won't disappoint everyone. I'm a fan of The Holy Ring, and I can tell everyone that director Peter was right. She was born to play the role of Utana." Augustus also replied to the message. He did not write as much as Motis, only a short sentence. "I saw Princess Utana standing in front of me." The two main actors of The Holy Ring had expressed their approval of the actress who played Utana. This made the fans even more curious. Just what kind of beauty did she have to be to gain everyone's approval? Do you dare to say it all at once? Chapter 596. However, no matter how much the fans roared in their hearts, the entire crew of The Holy Ring did not reveal anything. On the contrary, the fans were intrigued. They went to the official website every day, looking forward to the day when the crew would be merciful and release the stills. In the end, there really was. Augustus's Joshua was full of heroic spirit and extraordinarily handsome. Motis's Helen was beautiful, affectionate, and extremely intelligent. Finally, it was Utana's turn. Utana only had a back view. The back view in a white dress was surrounded by a sea of flowers. Under the kiss of the sun, it seemed to glow. People could not help but want her to look back. "Why don't you turn around and look?" The fans expressed that their hearts were tired. A fan left a comment below. "Haha, I have already seen through the sinister intentions of the crew. I have no hope. I am only waiting for the premiere next year. I admit that you've successfully piqued my curiosity. If Utana can't satisfy me, then just you wait. I will use all the vulgar words I have learned in my life to greet you all." His comment caused many people to feel the same way. Peter smiled as he looked at the various data that his assistant sent to him. Very good, the publicity of The Holy Ring was better than he had imagined. Gu Shengyin began to follow the production crew around the world for filming. What surprised Peter was that at first, he was worried that Angela was a newcomer and might not be good at acting. He had already prepared for her to only be responsible for her beauty. After all, even if she was a vase, as long as she had a face like Angela, there would be a lot of people willing to pay for her beauty. However, some people might be born to eat this bowl of rice. Not only did she have an unattainable beauty, but she also had an aura that ordinary people could not compare to. At the beginning of filming, Angela obviously made all kinds of mistakes. She was clearly at the level of a layman. However, what shocked the director and the other actors the most was that no matter what kind of mistake she made, as long as you corrected her once, she would never make the same mistake a second time. Even Motis had to sigh when he talked about her. "I may be witnessing the rise of a legend." As for Peter, Peter was overjoyed. He originally had high expectations for The Holy Ring, but after seeing Gu Shengyin's performance, he felt that he could set his goal even higher. It was perfect. In the later stages of the movie, no one could see any trace of a newcomer in this girl. Augustus was the one who acted with Gu Shengyin the most. He was even brought into the scene by Gu Shengyin, who was in the zone. He felt that he was Joshua, and the one he loved deeply was the beautiful princess. Augustus looked at Gu Shengyin with more and more infatuation. The crew had already sensed his thoughts, but looking at the other person, it was clear that he had no romantic feelings for Augustus. The officials of The Holy Ring did a good job. Every once in a while, They would release some news so that the fans would continue to pay attention to it and not forget about it. However, Princess Utana, who was the most anticipated, left people with only a back view that caused endless fanciful thoughts. No one, including Gu Shengyin, knew that there was someone who knew her whereabouts and every little bit of her daily life. Chapter 597. While many people were paying attention to it, the trailer of The Holy Ring was released. The special effects of the movie did not disappoint the audience. This time, Peter had a huge investment from Kenna. Whether it was the special effects, the soundtrack, or the post-production, they were all selected by the world's top team. The effect of the movie could be seen from the audience's reaction. Many fans of The Holy Ring had the same reaction after watching the trailer. Why did the movie have to wait until December to be released? Of course, as everyone expected, the crew once again whetted the audience's appetite. The audience was already familiar with Joshua's and Modi's appearances, but they were still pleasantly surprised by the dynamic trailer. Then, for the first time, the crew was generous with the role of Utana. The trailer revealed half of Utana's face. The last scene of the trailer was when Joshua mistakenly entered the Sky Castle and saw Utana for the first time. The handsome warrior looked at the girl in front of him with amazement and infatuation. The camera zoomed in and moved up from the other party's skirt. The audience also held their breaths. The gorgeous skirt, the beautiful collarbone, and then the audience saw the delicate outline of the chin and the slightly upturned corners of the lips. When the whole person was about to come out, the scene abruptly stopped. It was said that the day the trailer of The Holy Ring was released, the sales of keyboards in the entire United States suddenly soared. Many emotional fans said, "Peter, you'd better not let me see you before the release of The Holy Ring. Otherwise, you'd better be careful of your personal safety." More people turned their attention to the movie. Some professionals pointed out that the filming of The Holy Ring this time, based on the special effects and visuals shown in the trailer, could very well become an epic fantasy masterpiece. Fans of the original novel of The Holy Ring expressed that they had been afraid that filming the movie would ruin the novel. However, after watching the trailer, they were filled with anticipation for the movie. I'm a fan of The Holy Ring. Of course, I'm a fan of the novel. Ever since I heard that The Holy Ring was going to be made into a movie, I rejected it because I didn't believe that anyone could film the complete The Holy Ring. However, after I saw the trailer, my thoughts changed. I've watched this trailer more than 10 times, and now I have two thoughts. First, why is there still 3 months until the premiere? Secondly, do you dare to release a picture of my goddess, Utana? While The Holy Ring caused a wave of excitement outside, the filming of the movie was coming to an end. Yeah. The crisp sound of glasses clinking could be heard. The movie was finally completed. As usual, Peter spent a lot of money and invited the actors to the most luxurious 5-star hotel nearby for a meal. Augustus also invited everyone to his house for a party in the evening. The best actor might have his own properties all over the world because he often had to travel all over the world. Of course, no one would refuse. The movie is selling like hotcakes. Peter, the old man, was drunk. He was still mumbling as he hugged the wine bottle. The young actors and actresses were showing off their figures in the swimming pool. Gu Shengyin didn't particularly like this kind of noisy gathering. She took a glass of wine and leaned on the side to watch them play. "Angela." Augustus's voice came from behind her. Hearing his voice, Gu Shengyin felt a headache coming on. Chapter 598. Most of the people in the crew had already seen through Augustus's feelings for her. Augustus had restrained himself a little at first, but as they approached the end of the shoot, he became more and more unrestrained. Peter would not interfere in the private affairs of actors. Moreover, if Joshua and Utana could really have a spark in the Holy Ring, it would be a huge piece of news for him to publicize. Gu Shengyin turned around and smiled politely. "Mr. Monroe, are you not going to play with everyone?" "Call me Augustus, Angela. I thought we were already friends." Augustus showed a slightly melancholy smile. His appearance was top-notch even in the entire Western entertainment circle. If his appearance was spread out, it would probably cause all the female fans to scream. Augustus came over to have a showdown. Westerners did not know how to be reserved, and he felt that he could not hold back anymore. "Angela, you know what I mean, don't you?" Augustus looked at her affectionately. "You are the Utana in my heart, Angela. Can I have the qualifications to protect you in the future?" When he said this, his deep green eyes were full of affection that could drown people, making them reluctant to reject him. Gu Shengyin was silent for a moment before saying, "But there is no result between Utana and Joshua." "I'm sorry, Augustus." The hope in Augustus's eyes dimmed. In fact, he had already expected that Angela did not like him. He pulled out a smile. "There is nothing to be sorry about, Angela. This is something that requires mutual consent." Gu Shengyin appreciated his open-mindedness. Augustus continued, "If I'm not wrong, Angela, you don't have a boyfriend, right? In that case, can I sign up, and when you have the idea of a romantic relationship, consider me?" He smiled and said to Gu Shengyin, "I promise I won't pester you, and I won't bring you any trouble. But, Angela, I don't think I can let you go in a short time. If you have a boyfriend, you must tell me immediately and let me give up." This man was so honest that it was impossible to refuse. Gu Shengyin sighed. She didn't have any intention to have any unnecessary relationship with the people in the mission world. "I'm sorry, Augustus." Since he was destined not to have one, he might as well extinguish his hope from the very beginning. Augustus didn't expect the other party to be so straightforward, not even giving him a chance. He shrugged his shoulders and a bright smile appeared on his face. Gu Shengyin saw a trace of sadness in his eyes. "Come on, have a drink with me." Augustus looked at him with a smile. "Now, don't reject me anymore. Comfort this lovelorn old man's heart." He was really a gentleman. Gu Shengyin knew that he didn't want her to be too embarrassed. She raised her glass and clinked it with his. "Augustus, if you are willing, there are countless good girls in the world waiting to have a romantic relationship with you." Augustus smiled but didn't say anything. There were so many girls in the world, but there was only one Angela. Chapter 599. The next day, the main actors started to say goodbye to each other. They all had their own schedules and it would probably be the premiere when they saw each other again. During this period, the main actors even had to follow the crew to do some promotion for the movie. However, as the most mysterious actress, Gu Shengyin definitely did not need to show up. The next day, she followed Thomas back to York City on a plane. Thomas told her a piece of good news. Because of her special identity, she did not have any activities before the movie was released, so she could rest for 3 months. But she had to be careful in public places where there were many people. Although her face wasn't very well known, Angela's beauty was too eye-catching. Gu Shengyin nodded. If she really did not want others to see through her, it was very simple. A small disguise spell would do. She was not the only artist under Thomas. After giving some instructions, he left in a hurry. Gu Shengyin tidied herself up and got ready to have a good sleep. She even specifically asked Wella not to wake her up the next morning. In the past half a year, she had never had a good rest on set. It was a dreamless night. However, Gu Shengyin immediately realized that something was wrong when she woke up. This was not her room. She opened her eyes. It was pitch black. The thick curtains covered the window, making it impossible to tell whether it was day or night. However, the vision of an angel was not affected. Gu Shengyin clearly saw a man sitting by her bed and looking at her. She immediately became alert. Not to mention anything else, as an angel, even if her body was seriously injured and most of her power was sealed, her vigilance should not be so weak. She did not even notice that she was in a different place in her sleep. Not to mention, even the system did not remind her at all. Right. The system. Gu Shengyin called out to the system in her heart. There was no response. The system seemed to have fallen into a deep sleep. This man was definitely not an ordinary person. "You're awake." The man's deep voice sounded. Gu Shengyin did not make a sound, but the vigilance in her heart was getting stronger. If he was really an ordinary person, he would not be able to tell whether she was awake or not. The lights in the room were turned on, but the man clearly sat there without moving. In the next second, Gu Shengyin was standing on the ground. Under the bright environment, she could clearly see the man's appearance without any hindrance. He was very young, probably in his 20s. He was very handsome. In terms of appearance, he might be comparable to Augustus, but the two of them had completely different temperaments. Augustus had the kind of gentle and affectionate appearance. When he smiled, he was handsome and charming that no woman could resist. Even Gu Shengyin felt oppressed by this man's aura. This kind of aura could only be possessed by someone who had been in control of everything for a long time. His gaze was cold and indifferent, as if everything was nothing but an ant in his eyes. "Who are you?" As she said this, Gu Shengyin looked around the room she was in and made a simple judgment. This should be the man's home. "Who am I?" The man repeated her question and shifted his gaze to Gu Shengyin's face. Chapter 600. In the end, Gu Shengyin didn't know who this man was. Because when she asked him, he only looked at her with a gentle gaze. Then, he reached out his hand and gently tucked her loose blonde hair behind her head. Then, Gu Shengyin lost consciousness again. In a daze, she heard a man's voice in her ear. "Don't let other men get close to you, don't be tempted by other men, I will be angry." When she woke up, she was already in her room. She was wearing the clothes before she went to bed, and there was no trace of anyone entering or leaving the room. Everything that had happened before was like an illusory dream. But Gu Shengyin knew that it wasn't a dream. Those touches were so real, and there was that strange lotus fragrance on the other person's body. She looked at the time, it was already 5 o'clock in the afternoon. She had slept for a whole day and night. Gu Shengyin got up, and she didn't feel dizzy after sleeping for a long time. Wella was watching TV in the living room. "You're finally awake, Angela." Wella greeted her happily. "The food is already ready. Wait a moment." Wella was about to go to the kitchen, but Gu Shengyin stopped her. "Wait a minute, Wella." Gu Shengyin asked, "Did anyone enter my room while I was asleep?" Wella was confused. "I was at home the whole time, no." She looked at Gu Shengyin in surprise. "Did you lose something, Angela?" Although she knew that Wella probably didn't know, Gu Shengyin was still a bit disappointed. She smiled and shook her head. "No, I just had a nightmare." It was said that she had 3 months of rest, but Thomas came less than a week later. Of course, he was here to look for Gu Shengyin. "Angela, you said that you forgot the past, so I didn't ask you about your talent. Today, Peter contacted me and asked if you would like to try singing the theme song for The Holy Ring." Everyone knew how beautiful Gu Shengyin's voice was. Even when she was filming, a composer in the crew was amazed when he heard her voice. "When I heard Angela speak, I was reminded of the singing bird in the fairy tale. It is a bird that sings for God." The composer also tried his best to persuade Gu Shengyin to become a singer. He even said that he was willing to create the most suitable music for her. However, at that time, Gu Shengyin had just started filming The Holy Ring. She didn't want to leave a bad impression on the director, so she didn't accept his offer. She didn't expect that Peter would personally invite her to sing the theme song. Thomas said, "It's a composer from the production team of The Holy Ring. After he composed the song, he expressed that he must invite you to sing it. Peter also heard your voice before, and since it would be a good gimmick for you to sing, he agreed to let you give it a try." Thomas couldn't hide the joy on his face. "You have to work hard, Angela. This is a rare opportunity." He didn't tell Gu Shengyin that Peter just wanted her to give it a try. If she didn't pass, he would still find a professional singer to sing. For Peter, who wanted everything to be perfect, he would never allow the movie to be ruined by the theme song after so much effort and preparation. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.